Cassie, it's a pleasure to have you at Converge. Welcome, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Olga. I'm excited.
Wonderful. I would love to start with a series of questions on leadership and decision making. How do you define effective decision making within the organizations? And what are the core decision making principles that you think should be implemented in today's AI driven business environment?
Well, decision making is kind of an important thing, so I'm not sure that one could span all of it in just a short conversation. But I would say take the decision intelligence approach. What decision intelligence is a revamping of decision making as a modern discipline. So it is all about turning information into optimal action at any scale, any setting. And so what that means is effective decision making will be about honoring the scale of the decision and the information available to you. There are situations in which you have petabytes of wonderful, useful data, and it would be a real shame not to make use of that. So, effective decision making in that setting is being able to use modern decision automation, so think AI, in order to create the best structures and processes for decision making. But there are also situations in which data might not be relevant, or perhaps the data that is best is data that comes in through your human senses. And so people might think of intuition. What intuition is, when usefully applied, is it is something about biological processing of information, either on a species level or on an individual level. What I mean by a species level is throughout the course of evolution, our species would have picked up a trick or two to understand what's dangerous, what's not. For example, having some intuition about whether someone is trustworthy, is lying to us. That might be something that we would have learned, not necessarily as individuals, but things in micro expressions that all of us, by being human, might be able to detect. Another kind of intuition is when you have done something a lot, you've been in the right context to have relevant information, but all that information just came in through your senses. It goes somewhere, it goes into memory, and you might think, huh, I know that the system is telling me one thing if I'm looking at an electronic system, but I've really seen this many, many times. And my information is more relevant, it's better, and you might change your course. It's all about knowing what the right information is, what the best information is for the setting that you're in. So effective decision making is about turning information into optimal action, any scale, any setting. If you find yourself stuck, you say, oh, I couldn't possibly make decisions here. It's, oh, I don't know. All of a sudden, I'm forced to be using electronic data and I'm only used to using data that comes in through my senses. You may not be as effective a decision maker as somebody who can truly run the full gamut.
What do you think today's leaders need to be prepared in order to make sure that they leverage AI to empower decision as opposed to outsourcing the most critical decision making processes within an organization to a technology that is not fully understood and it's not even clear like at what point it will be understood enough?
I'm happy to take that one. I will point out also that intuition is not fully understood either, so it shouldn't be the lack of understanding really that is our point of departure. But what any data person understands is that just having data isn't enough. And one of the biggest mistakes you can make is pronounce data like it has a capital D, like it's some magical, data. You have a spreadsheet, therefore you have the ability to make the best possible decision. Not necessarily. Your information has to be good for the use you're putting it to. And so understanding that sometimes data is extremely powerful, sometimes data is noise and actually quite useless to you is really important. So data worship is also quite a big problem, as much of a problem as saying no to data on principle. Again, it is about making the best use of information that we have available to us. But when you look at what AI is, how would you use the sentence? Well, how would you use the words AI and decision making in a sentence, Olga? Like, how do they go together? AI.
I would say AI enabled, AI supported, AI fact checked decision making process. I don't know
Okay,
if that's correct.
perfect.
If that's
So
how I would use it.
I wanted you to say what most people say, which is that the relationship between AI and decision making that most people go for when I ask them to use it in a sentence is that AI is some kind of tool for decision making. AI helps you make decisions. Something
That's how I think about it. Yeah.
exactly. But what people forget is that AI is also the product of decision making. That it's not some neutral entity that just kind of exists. It, sprung up one day, it kind of fell from the moon. AI is built by humans. And what it does is it scales up the decision making of whoever built it. So when you are using an AI system for your decision making, what you're actually doing is you are allowing whoever built that system to help you with your decisions. That may be a good thing, that may be a terrible thing. Again, it very much depends who, what, and why. So when you look at AI from a builder's perspective, the people who create AI systems, there it's very useful to know that every AI system comes from answers to three very subjective questions. Your first question is about purpose. So these are the three P's: patterns, purpose, and performance. And these are absolutely subjective questions that are up to the builders of the system. So first, purpose. What is a system for? Because what it's built for and who it's built for will determine what counts as a mistake. So that's the first one. The second one, the patterns, that's data. Data sets are like textbooks for a human student to learn from. So here's the textbook machine, learn from this textbook, pull the patterns out, and then we're going to automate decision making based on that. The choice of textbook is up to the leader or decision maker, and there is not just one data set that'll work. You can always go and pay a lot of money and create a data set from scratch, or you could pick one up off the shelf that came from somewhere you don't know where it came from, and you hope it's useful to you. But if it's not made for a context like yours and it's not made for data like yours, your machine student is going to learn the wrong thing. It's going to pull out patterns, but they're not going to be that useful to you. And what I like to remind people of is that, like textbooks, data sets have human authors. They also don't come from the moon. There's not one right way to create a data set. And so when you choose a data set for your automation process, you're making a subjective decision. One of the biggest mistakes you can make as a leader is to allow your people to take a data set and not worry about where it came from, not look inside to check that this is actually something that you want to be learning from. It's too easy to go, I have this database, let's just plug it into this AI thing, and off we go. And then you're surprised that you end up with bias. I have a 6-word lecture on AI bias. What is it? AI bias? AI is one word for me. AI bias, inappropriate, textbooks never examined. So something in there is inappropriate, it doesn't represent the best of us, it isn't what we want to bring into the world going forward, and yet it was so easy just to take that data set, pull patterns out of it, and create automation. So that's also a very subjective decision, and when you use someone else's AI system, all that baggage is coming along for the ride. And then the last one is the nature of your exam. That's your third big question. It is up to the leader, the decision maker, to set the criteria for how good a system needs to be used in their organization, to be launched in the first place. And how do you think about what's good enough? Just as a human teacher will set an exam for a human student. There is more than one right way to set an exam. There's more than one right way to score the exam. There's more than one right way to set a minimum grade. And the tougher your exam, the more qualified your student will be. But if you set your exam too tough, no students will ever pass your class, and you'll never have any professionals working. So there's always a trade-off between creating the ultimate tough exam and having an exam that will allow bad performance to get through. And when you borrow someone else's AI system, you're also taking their judgment calls on this along for the ride. And none of these things are something that you can learn in a PhD program. None of it has one mathematical right answer. All of it is human judgment calls. And so, as a decision maker, when you're building a system, you have to fully own the consequences of these three decisions. And as a decision maker, when you're taking someone else's system and you're implementing it in your own decision making or in your own organization, you have to understand that what it was built for and what you need may be two different things. And so then the skill of checking whether this is actually something good for you, whether it is what you need, is a very important decision making skill.
I see. Those insights are fascinating. And I want to thank you so much for your time and for your willingness to share and for your expertise. I was truly fascinated when I learned how many people you trained in Google and all the frameworks that you were able to provide today and this like really clear thought line behind how we should be thinking about AI from very different segments. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us at Converge and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me.